Welcome to the Cultivate 2021 Talent Summit. The title of our presentation is Becoming Future Ready with AI. True, there are lots of AI discussions out there, but this one will be with Chevron, which has run the technology at scale for talent solutions. So this will definitely be insightful for those looking at the AI journey. Our two panelists include Stacy Ang, who is the Chief Learning and Talent Officer at Chevron, and Luis Niño, who is the Digital Talent Solutions Manager at Chevron. Let's start off with an introduction about Chevron. I mean, we all know Chevron is an oil company. It's a massive company, but there's a lot more to it than we may think. So maybe let's start with that, Stacy, and maybe a little description about the company and what you're doing there.
Sure. Thank you, Tom. So Chevron is a global energy company with our strong focus on people, performance, and partnership. We're a 140-year-old company headquartered in San Ramon, California, with operations around the world and three major business segments. We had our upstream operations, which is focused on our exploration and drilling. We have midstream that's focused on shipping, pipeline distribution, and supply and trading, and also downstream, which is our refinery and manufacturing of petrochem products. We know that affordable, reliable, and ever cleaner energy enables modern life. And so in order for us to continue to enable human progress and lead innovation in our business, we need to make sure that we have robust, diverse talent pool of problem solvers to continue to bring and design innovative solutions to shape the future of energy.
Yeah, the first question I want to look into is about data. And that is the fuel for AI. It's the fuel for digital transformation that's going on across the world. And I know Chevron has been making some major investments in data. So what has been the strategy here with HR and talent? And what roles do AI and ML play? So, maybe Stacy, start with you. Kind of like, what has this journey been about through AI and data?
We have been on a transformation in terms of our digital solutions for talent management here at Chevron, particularly in our human resources space. Historically, given that our business are decentralized, we have systems and our data kind of residing in different parts of our business. And so in the last couple of years in our digital transformation, we've been trying to centralize into a total ecosystem around all of these systems across different business segments into one human resources information system. And we brought in technology on HRIS as one system that centralized all the data that used to reside in our business segments. And that became a strong foundation for us to be able to leverage data in a consistent way and applying some of the other tools in our digital ecosystem to leverage that data with AI and machine learning to be able to give us more insightful stories and patterns and analysis of the information to help us make better decisions around talent.
I think Stacy answered this really, really well. And I think one of the things that she highlighted was in Chevron, we have been using data for a long, long time. This space of talent and HR is one where we are starting to apply some of the practices and methodologies that we've applied in our business for decades, where, out on the field, we've used operational technologies and sensors to gather time series data, for example, big data that we call it nowadays. We're just getting into that in the HR and talent space. So we have a set of digital imperatives in Chevron. And the first one is data is an asset. Data is a Chevron asset. And so by that, what we mean is we need to understand the value of our data, whether it's historical in the case of HR, for example, with previous candidates that we've had applying for Chevron, or some of our alumni who have left the company, all the data points that we've been able to gather in the HR space. Luckily, we have kept, and we are now being able to mine and derive insights from.
I think a lot of these big companies, they all want to be agile. They want to, go through this digital transformation, use these great technologies, but they may also have mainframes. They may also have silos. Even small companies have silos. There's the cultural issues, surrounding this migration, using the cloud, leveraging data and so forth. Maybe talk a little bit about that. How much of this is more cultural versus, just buying some technology and bringing some consultants in to help you with that transition? Maybe talk a little bit about that, Luis.
Yeah, sure. I can start that. You're absolutely right. The challenge is actually more on the cultural side than on the technology side. Technology is moving so fast And in the HR technology space, that's an understatement. This is going much faster than in other areas. So what we found as we've gone through this research is that when we've had a technology need, we've been able to find it or find a provider that resolves that problem for us. The cultural change takes a little bit more time. In particular, in a company like ours that has been very focused on reliability and safety for obvious reasons, that part of our business has bled into the corporate functions, and that drives behaviors that want to make sure that we're managing risk to the best of our abilities, right? And at times that maybe, if not managed in an agile way, it can slow you down, right? And so we have been very careful in the past few years in understanding where we can mitigate risk and when we can take some additional risks with data, all the while keeping the guardrails that we need to protect, things like protected criteria and personal data the way we've always done.
I would just expand on that too, given that, as Luis mentioned, our culture is more focused on safety, compliance, and also we have a lot of regulations, and many parts of our business are highly regulated. So we've been very careful and err on the side of more of risk mitigation when it comes to data. So there's a lot of issues around making sure that, especially when it comes to HR data, that it's about people. And how do we make sure that we're protecting that, the confidentiality of privacy of data, and that has become part of our DNA, if you will, in terms of being able to protect that and not sharing it as broadly or as being transparent with that across the business and sharing that data. But whereas now, as we're moving into more of this agile environment and having more of the data, the shareable data, and then having that one foundation of data, we really need to start thinking about, is that going to be a different change for us in terms of being able to manage the risk and still being able to protect that data because they're about people's privacy, versus how much are we being transparent and being able to openly share that data across our business for these type of insights and analysis that we're looking at to mine that data.
When it comes to data, and especially HR data, it really goes to the heart of the matter of privacy and bias. And I do think it probably, to some people, it is a concern. Is my data going to be misused? Will I be denied employment because of the information that's being used against these algorithms, these AI and ML algorithms? So I know that there's some of that, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that post their resumes on LinkedIn, and they're completely open about the data about themselves and their employment and so forth.
Actually, as you think about nowadays, people are very open about some of their own information, like resumes and their people information on LinkedIn and public sources. But within companies, we're still more closed in terms of being able to manage that privacy on our end. So there is definitely a difference between what people are willing to share in the public forum versus how companies are protecting it and managing that data internally.
Yeah, in terms of looking at the privacy and the bias, you have these talent solutions that you bring in. What kind of vetting do you do when you look at some of these solutions? Do you put it through the ringer and spend a year just doing a pilot, or just because there are all these potential issues that exist out there? Kind of how do you approach this technology, and when you apply this type of technology, which is kind of new for a lot of companies?
So Tom, I want to make sure I go back to a point you made earlier about the challenges with data and how it's been disaggregated for a large company like ours. That's spot on. Being a federated company, as Stacy mentioned, we have had some serious challenges ensuring that we've been able to aggregate the data, to normalize the data. That we've built single systems of record, like Stacy was saying, for our human capital management and on our HRIS systems. That has not been an easy road. We've been traveling it for years, but now we feel like we have the data foundation, and more importantly, to your point about the cultural needs, that we have the confidence on the data to start gaining insights. And so this has taken us through a road of, starting to explore data science use cases and artificial intelligence use cases, mining things like people's sentiments on desirability for growth, taking advantage of the results that we've seen historically, making sure that we are extracting data for even from our cold storage archives, from people that used to work for Chevron, or candidates that didn't quite have the right opportunity at the time to get hired. So all of that data we are now being able to use to gain insights. Now I want to touch also on your comment about data protection. During this journey, what we've learned is to break down this problem into chunks, and so we've been and will remain to be very protective of personal data and sensitive personal data. Us, as well as regulators and people at large, really care about that. But I think people's mindset, like Stacy was saying earlier, is more open when it comes to their career, right? Their achievements, things like certifications, the jobs they've had, the contacts that they share. And that's where we're finding a lot of the value, right? So as we bring artificial intelligence in, as we have that capability to build an AI human construct, that's what's augmenting our ability to make decisions on the talent side.
I think that that's absolutely right. And just to expand on that, what Luis has talked about in terms of unlocking the value of data, now that we're able to bring the data into one system and being able to kind of see all the data in one place rather than historically, because they are more spread out, we haven't been able to leverage and mine that data to do analysis, to see how we can map all those resumes that we used to collect. How are we able to kind of mine that data to look into that as potential candidates that we may be able to match to jobs or opportunities that we may have, or even internally, our talent profiles of our talent. Now that we have one place where we can store that and being able to help our talent with their talent profile, match them to career opportunities internally for internal mobility purposes. So we're able now to mine that data using AI, using the value of seeing all the data in one place to be able to do all of that and help to kind of advance some of the talent processes and those decisions. So it has been a tremendous journey for us, and being able to have that data foundation as a starting point and that integrated data really helps unlock that value for us.
I know saying things like getting your data right is important, and having people's profiles in one place, that sounds kind of basic, but getting that right allows you to leap over the progress with the new technologies that are emerging in this space. And so from getting the talent profiles ready, you can basically make a jump to matching people to opportunities, right? And those opportunities may take different shapes. It may be learning opportunities, it may be a job, it may be mentoring or shadowing, right? And so I know that when we say things like we focus so much on data foundation, it sounds like we are starting to get the basics right, which is true, but the acceleration after that is exponential. And I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, and I think, I've talked to a lot of companies that, are starting with AI, they're learning about it, and they automatically, want to focus on the algorithms, the cool deep learning systems, but, those are all just off the shelf. I mean, they're open source, they're standard. The algorithms are just really a small part of what's involved with AI. You're going to spend most of your time and costs with data. And then it's not just a one-time thing. Data changes over time. I'm sure as you look at your resumes and your employees, there's changes, in cultural, and also you're a global company, and there's changes across the world, and what may happen in one country is not what's happening in another country. So how do you look at that? Even though you centralize this data, it is global data, and there are these changes in the data over time. Probably the biggest was COVID, but how do you look at that from a data perspective? It's just the evolution of data.
That's definitely an evolution and a journey for us. Obviously, we know that data, if they're static, it's not going to be helpful for us because our business is constantly evolving, jobs are evolving, capabilities that we need are evolving. But I think now that having our data in one place and leveraging AI, we're able to go into like public sources where, to your earlier point, many of our candidates and talent that we've been looking externally are posting their information about the jobs that they're in, the experiences they have, the skills that they gain on public sources like LinkedIn and other job boards, where we're now able to marry the data that we have collected from the resumes that they applied, also to kind of combine that with external open source data and leveraging AI to help us process that massive amount of data to come up with the right matching and the algorithm with the right calibration to match them to the jobs and the skill set that we have. So it adds to the richness of our data that we've collected internally by being able to combine that with other data sources, leveraging technology and AI to help us mine that and combine that with what we have. So I think that helps us unlock an even broader value by not just keeping our data static, but continue to add to that with what we can from what we can mine externally.
That's spot on, and I think what that means for us on the technology side. So you talked about the pandemic, Tom, as a vector of change. I think there's several other vectors of change in our industry, right? The energy transition obviously is front and center for us, but also there's this one that's really interesting to me with the recognition of changes in leadership that organizations are going through, right? This concept of servant leadership and agility, these are also driving change in the way that people need to upskill and reskill, and the opportunities that become available for folks. On the data and technology side, what that means is that we need to build modularity and we need to build flexibility, right? And so if you're an architect in technology, you're trying to figure out ways to containerize and build modular flexibility that allows you to basically plug and play technology. So to go back to your point about algorithms being off the shelf, yes, a lot of them are readily available. It's how you put them to use, right? And then also I would like to say that not all of them are equal, and not all of them are artificial intelligence. Part of the journey that we've also gone through is, with respect to everybody out there, there's a lot of vaporware out in the technology, economy or market or whatever, and we have gone through deep research when we've engaged with these partners. Earlier, you talked about how have we vetted bias with some of these folks. We have done that, and we continuously do that with our peers in the compliance groups. But we've also been lucky to leverage the data science knowledge, mathematical knowledge, and business knowledge from some of our experts in the business when we're evaluating some of the algorithms that we're now using in HR. So just understanding that this is a space, as you said, that is complex, that requires flexibility and speed. We've sort of put all of our assets at our disposals to use to make sure that we're getting this right little by little.
That's an interesting question. And as we kind of continue to think about implementing technology and AI, know that AI is something that will get smarter and smarter over time as you use it and calibrate it with human intelligence and also interaction with other humans as well, so that it can get smarter based on what it learns from the process. And so we never see this implementation as just implementing off the shelf and then let it kind of make a lot of decisions for us. But we know that it needs to be continuous interacting with our leaders, with the people who are using it, our recruiters, our hiring managers, for example, to make sure that they are constantly in there teaching the system, teaching AI in terms of what they're looking for from a skill set perspective, from a qualifications, to help the system get smarter and smarter so that it can be more accurate in terms of getting more and more accurate. It won't be 100%, like you said, Tom, but it will get even closer and closer to a higher probability of it being closer to what we're looking for and finding the candidates and the talent and the matches that we're looking for. So it is a learning process. And I would see that the technology needs to also learn some of the kind of the way that we think, and also making some of those judgments through that interaction with the people who are using it, and continue to make sure that that's been calibrated to what we need.
The beauty of AI is it gets smarter. It learns over time, but it can get dumber over time too. If like you said, there's not enough attention paid to it. there isn't a process. I know ML ops is emerging as a category, very important that, for deployment of AI to make sure it's running properly, or setting up centers of excellence, or, like you even said, the reskilling. So the adoption within the organization, or how you treat data, are all very important here. So I think that's, AI is something that just needs a lot of attention, but the benefits are so significant. I think it's worth making those investments. And I think that companies in the future are going to benefit tremendously, who make those investments. But talent has been probably very AI free, and maybe even to some extent, not as much analytics. So for what you're doing at Chevron, to me, looks like it's on the cutting edge of what's happening in this industry. And I'm certain there's probably some surprises, and maybe a couple unintended consequences, which is kind of natural when you're pioneering something. So maybe talk about some of the use cases or some of the unexpected results that you've seen when you're using this type of technology.
Well, one of the things I do want to comment on is in terms of what we're learning is that when you implement a technology like AI or a system or tool, now we also need to train up and skill up our workforce and our people to have that digital fluency and acumen, and also that data analytic capability to be able to mine that data. So it's not just about implementing technology and having that data foundation, but we also need people with the right knowledge and the skill set to be able to take that data scientists who are able to take that data and being able to analyze that and find out the themes and the story and how we tell that. So I think we've been building that into a lot of our development programs to upskill and reskill our workforce on that digital, what does that digital acumen look like? We have a very strong data development program, data scientist development program, where we're looking at kind of developing data scientists to be able to analyze that data and using the mass amount of data that we have to come up with the right themes and to help inform insights. So that's one area that we're continuing to build up the skill set of our workforce, and recognizing that the journey that we're on in digital is not only a technology issue alone, but you need to complement that with developing the right skills and the capabilities of your people to be able to use that data responsibly and use that data effectively and efficiently. So just having that one set of technology equation alone is not going to be able to help us lead that transformation. So that's one of the learnings that we find is that technology is one part of the equation. We also need to couple that with the right development and the right capabilities and skill building for our people to be able to use that data effectively.
Yeah, that's a great take on that lesson. I think the other thing that I'd highlight here, and I know it's been a topic more and more, and it's becoming more and more of a topic recently, has been how we make the talent strategy actionable through data and the technologies that have emerged in this space. And one of the interesting things to see has been, and lessons has been, how light bulbs are starting to turn on depending on the insights that you're getting. The recognition of skills as the building block of the talent ecosystem, and how we manage those, how we take advantage of those through our data normalization and artificial intelligence and insights, has been incredible for us, and I think incredible for the industry as a whole. I've had several conversations with my peers in Chevron and outside, and this is changing the way we see talent and the way we understand talent, right? But for the past few decades, to your point, Tom, this has been somewhat an untouched area by deep data science and by artificial intelligence. And so an example of how we've seen this transition has been with job architectures. In the past, companies have, built up these job architectures. They take a role, they attach maybe a couple dozen skills or competencies to that job, and they build their whole structure based on that. But Stacy said this before, those have been static. And it has been an incredible task to get those to be up to date. Companies have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars just making sure that they're not building technical debt with their architectures. Well, with the advent of data and or the way we can understand now data, job architectures have become dynamic. And that kind of forces us to look at most of our workflows and practices and throw them in the trash can because we have to move at that speed. The human brain is not capable of understanding the correlations of skills that artificial intelligence can make visible to us. And so the impact and the lesson for me has not so much been on how we manage and how we apply algorithms to the data. It has been on how fast workflows and the strategy is shaped by the possibilities.
Given that there's a lot of insight and that you've gone through this journey, you have 55,000 employees across the world. You're in an industry that's highly dynamic, going through lots of changes. So maybe some final takeaways about some of the learnings that you've seen that can help out other companies that go through this journey or thinking about going through this journey. Maybe start with you, Stacy.
Sure. I think because AI and technology and this digital journey is probably still fairly new for a number of companies and also leaders in the organization. One of the key takeaways that we have from this journey is that don't underestimate the amount of change management that's required to help educate your leaders, to help educate your workforce about what the technology and the value that the tool is enabling, and what is the kind of the business case in terms of how you wanted to leverage that data, and how is that going to help in terms of creating more informed talent decisions or helping our talent to match them to the right career opportunities. That case for change needs to be very clear for all the involved parties. But don't just assume that people understand that, because it's such a fairly new concept. And we learned from our journey that having that clear value case and being able to articulate what's in it for each of the stakeholders, whether it's for the candidates themselves, for our employees who are leveraging that, or hiring managers or our business leaders, we're on an education journey to make sure that all of them understand what is the value of that change. And what is the technology and the tools helping to unlock the value for each of them. So don't underestimate the amount of change management and where you need to focus on to make sure that people understand that.
I guess I would add from the technology side, do your homework. Do your homework on the artificial intelligence side, and very importantly, do your homework on the architecture side. Stacy talked about having the opportunity in mind and making sure you start there. That needs to be directly tied to your architecture and the partners you seek as you build an ecosystem, right? I think I get very excited about technology, and I am of the mindset of testing everything that comes at my disposal. At times that may work, a lot of times it doesn't work, because you have to be cognizant of what is the opportunity at hand, and to Stacy's point, what is the organization's taste and capability for change, right? Everybody talks about how change is, we're as slow as we're going to be today, and it's only getting faster day by day, and that's true, but that doesn't mean that people have the ability to change at the speed of technology. So I would say do your homework, make sure that you're understanding what AI is and how it's being utilized by your partners and vendors. Do your homework when it comes to architecture. Make sure you understand concepts like open architectures and mature integration, so that you don't end up with a Frankenstein of solutions when what you're trying to have is a seamless experience for your user.
Yeah, I've seen some of those Frankenstein so-called solutions, and we're going to have some of those in AI, and I think we've already had some come about. But this presentation is going to make sure that you don't have that. And I want to, we're at the end right now for this presentation, and I want to thank Stacy and Louise for their time. This has been an excellent presentation, and I appreciate their insights. And I want to thank everyone else who attended. Again, I know you have a lot on your plate, so we really appreciate it. And good luck on your AI journey.